Hello friends, welcome to UGC EPG Pathshala. Myself Dr. Taruna Bansal, Assistant Professor at Department of Geography, Jamia Millia Islamia. Today I will be speaking on evolution of geographical thinking and disciplinary trends in India. And this particular module is part of the paper Geographical Thought. India, home of one of the world's earliest civilization, has a long-standing intellectual tradition. The geographical studies in India began with the dawn of Indian civilization in ancient times. Occupying a strategic location in Asia, Indian history is at crossroads of cultures from China to Europe. The contributions of Indian scholars in the ancient period are parallel to that of Chinese, Greeks and Romans. In this geographically diverse subcontinent of Eurasia, discoveries on nature and humanity from Upanishads and Vedas led the development of various indigenous knowledge systems. The vast galaxy of scientists, philosophers, poets and sages left behind a wealth of history of thought. In fact, several inventions and discoveries believed to have originated in the Western world have been studied centuries earlier by our ancestors. Looking back at the roots of Indian geography reveals very rich and strong Indian intellectual heritage, a legacy of over 2000 years. However, the formal foundations of academic geography in India was laid in colonial period as late as 1920s. Beginning in the 8th century, India was exposed to Islamic geographical concepts and ideas, and Muslim geographers began to take place beside Hindu scholars in contributing the maturing of geographical study in India. The arrival of British and other European colonial powers in the 17th century forced an adjustment in Indian intellectual circles. Indian geographers' progress in the modern times has been spectacular after independence. After independence, geography acquired a new function in the context of national development, expansion of educational system and strengthening of planning projects. The complete image of Indian geographical thought demands a thorough critical screening of the inherited wealth from the past and the contemporary practices which together have decisive influences on the future directions. We come to the roots of Indian geography. Geography in India is called Bhugol, coming from the word Bhu meaning earth and Gol meaning earth. That means the study of round earth. Indian astronomers propounded the theory that the earth is a sphere. The ancient Indian scholars were well known in all fields known to humanity. Some of the scholars are listed below and which is present in the table 1. This interdisciplinary knowledge lies in the roots of geographic development. For example, it can be cited of Acharya Kapil, Acharya Bharadwaj, Bodhyana, then we have Acharya Charak, we have Acharya Kannad, we have Acharya Sushrat, we have Siddhartha Gautam, Panini, as well as Nagarjuna. All these have contributed to geography and to the interdisciplinary disciplines like philosophy, cosmology, mathematics, astrology, astronomy, physics, chemistry, science, technology and linguistics. In fact, Indian scholars have contributed significantly in the growth of geography and its development along with its allied sciences. Although the classical Indian scholars have richly contributed to the various fields, physical geography, regional geography, climatology, mathematical and practical geography, their knowledge, particularly in astronomy known as Khagol Shastra, was fascinating. The philosophy in India developed from the common reservoir of Upanishadic ideas. The philosophic thought is classified into two basic categories, orthodox and heterodox. The ancient Indian scholars dealt with many problems pertaining to cosmology, cosmogony and cosmography. From the Vedic times, Indians, that is Indo-Aryans, had classified the material world into 4 elements: earth as Prithvi, fire as Agni, air as Maya and water as Apa. To these 4 elements were added a 5th one, that is Akash. These 5 elements or Panch Mahabhutas were identified with the various human sense of perception: earth with smell, air with feeling, fire with vision, water with taste and other either with sound. Geographical inheritance of in India. Although geography was not then developed as a formal discipline, early Indian scholars had a well-developed geographical sense and clearly understood spatial relationships. The earliest mention of geography as a discipline is traced back to Bhagavad Puran, the 8th century Puranic text, when Bhugol, a vernacular term for geography, was used in most Indian languages, which is derived from Sanskrit. A large amount of geographical information is contained even in Mahabharata and Ramayana, and apart from this, the ancient earth studies dealt with origin of the earth, sphericity of the earth, eclipses, size and dimensions, latitudes, longitudes, local time directions or cardinal points, atmosphere, seasons, its physical conditions. So we see that in ancient India, in ancient period, the knowledge about various parts of the world, various elements of climate were taken, but the knowledge about various parts of the earth was limited, and this was basically due to poor means of communication and transportation. Even then, attempts were made to divide the world into several regions, and we see that such description does exist in Puranas, where the word Dweep has been used to designate various realms or continents of the earth. Now, there are 7 Dweeps. These 7 Dweeps are Jambu Dweep, Kroncha Dweep, Kusha Dweep, Palaksha Dweep, Pushkara Dweep, Shaka Dweep, and Shalmali Dweep. Now, Jambu Dweep was the center of all these continents. The geographical knowledge of ancient period about Indian subcontinent is related to its identification, people and culture, relief and drainage. In Vedic and Puranic literature, the entire country from Himalaya to Kanyakumari has been referred as Bharatvarsha. This name has both historical as well as geographical significance. Although the Bharatvarsha in ancient times was subdivided into several regions, several other parts of the country have been distinctively mentioned in the ancient Indian literature. Some of them can be mentioned here, like Sapta Sindhu, that is the Punjab plains, Aryavrat, the Arya domain, Indus Valley, Himalayas known as Himavat. Then we had Kailash Parvat, Vindhyas, Mahendramali, Eastern Ghats, the Sahyadri, Ajanta and Golconda. The descriptions are also available for a number of Himalayan and other Indian rivers. Rig Veda has mentioned various rivers originating from Himalayas like Ganga, Yamuna, Brahmaputra, Satudri, which is Satlaj, Saraswati, Asikani, which is Chenab, Vitasa, which is Jhelum, Arijikaya, which is upper part of Indus, Susoma, which is Savan, Sindhu, which is Indus, and so on. Among the inland rivers, the important ones that got mentioned are Narmada, Tapti, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri and Tungabhadra. However, the most elaborate descriptions exist about Ganga and Brahmaputra. The religious flavor is very strong in these descriptions, and the rivers have always been considered sacred and has been worshipped as goddesses in Hindu mythology. Now we come to the Middle Ages. The Indians came in contact with Arabs in 712 AD when they came into Sindh, but it was not until 1206 that Muslim rule started in Delhi, and therefore the geographic thought of the Arabs made an impact on Indian society. In 1030, the Arab geographer Al-Biruni wrote the Geography of India. Most of the Arab geographical work was based on the development of the making of observations and using these for inventory of soil, products and economic aspects. From 9th to 15th century, important data was collected and directly observed by Arabs as well as Indian geographers. After 15th century, geographical information began to emanate from Europe. These ideas were brought by the British colonists. The medieval period therefore had works of Al-Biruni and Abu Fazl. Now where we have books like Kitabul Hind of Al-Biruni, Travels in India and China, a travelogue written by Ibn Battuta, then we have Ain Akbari and the third volume of Akbarnama. Now we come to the colonial period, which can be regarded as the period when geography as an independent and permanent discipline appeared, or rather got established in India. Geography, like all other sciences, was historically and socially conditioned during the colonial period. In the colonial milieu, geography developed to meet primarily the needs of the administration in the process of expansion and consolidation of the colonial regime. One of the major goals of the geographic research carried on under the umbrella of colonial authorities was to provide descriptive accounts of the land, people and products of different parts of the Indian subcontinent to colonial administrators. Maps and gazeteers were produced to acquaint the colonial civic servants with basic geographic information. Geography was introduced into a number of universities during 1920s. During this decade, number of Indian geographers pioneered in establishing geography as a permanent discipline. Some of the names which can be cited as are Subramaniam in Chennai, Dubey in Allahabad, Ahmed in Lahore, Tahir Rizvi in Aligarh, and S.C. Chatterjee in Patna. During this phase, two leading geographical societies at Madras and Calcutta were established to promote their knowledge and territory and the resources. Number of surveys was also set up, like Survey of India, Geological Survey of India, Zoological Survey of India, Archaeological Survey, Anthropological Survey, Linguistic Survey, to name few. Further, the gazeteers, the reports of the Geological and Archaeological and Anthropological Survey of India were used and produced periodically to get reliable information on geographical phenomena. Similarly, we had Indian Meteorological Department, which provided climatic data. The colonial geography therefore had its advantage for having more authentic information of places and people, based as this information was based on accurate surveying and extensive field work. Moreover, the concept and content of geography had also changed. Now it was much more than the mere accumulation of facts and their description, and was a systematic description and interpretation, which led to the pattern which existed in the on the surface of the earth. Initially, in the colonial period, the emphasis in Indian geographical study was the collection and presentation of information to illuminate the various regions of the country, and to a much lesser extent the continuing geographical analysis of classical Indian literature. The regional cataloging of information was much more there. So, we see that a number of the way the Britishers gathered geographic information was mainly because they required that for being more for colonizing the areas which were not there. So, the even the census reports or the gazetteers, they all made excellent contribution in the advancement of Indian geographical knowledge and study. Now, although the roots of the Indian academic geography lie deep in antiquity, the discipline is now achieving maturity, and especially this has become more prominent once we see the later stages, and its development can be seen in four sequential phases. The formative stage, that is pre-1950s, the informative stage 1950s, the confirmative stage 1960s, and the reformative stage, that is after 1971. So, we talk of the formative stage, that is pre-1950s. Modern geography was introduced as a British cultural import in Indian schools in the latter half of the 19th century. The outlines of a more professional and academic approach to the discipline dates from 1920s, when it entered the portals of Indian universities and was upgraded as a subject of study at the undergraduate level at the universities in Lahore, Aligarh, and Patna. Beginning in the mid 1930s and extending up to the time of independence, Indian geography was under the influence of three individuals trained in French universities: R.N. Dubey, M.H. Rahman, and S.P. Chatterjee. These scholars gave Indian geography its first particular methodological orientation. Man-land relationship was expressed through the possibilist philosophy of the great French geographers, and it became significant aspect of the newly forming Indian geography. German geographic philosophy and ideas correlating physical elements with cultural elements to form landscape was introduced by N.R. Carr and K.R. Dixit. Those most responsible for transmitting British geographical ideas to India, both regional and topical approaches, include Shafi, R.L. Singh, C.D. Deshpande, George Kurian, and P. Dayal. Each of these individuals clearly and closely identified the university geography departments, which later evolved as the leading centers for the growth and development of this discipline. There is no wonder at all that the first generation of Indian geographers were those who got trained in other disciplines, but opted for geography as their professional careers and fought for its great cause. Among the professional geographers who made a mark during this formative period in history of Indian geography, the names of H.L. Chibber, S.V. Chatterjee, M.B. Pithawala, R.N. Dubey, G. Kurian, K.S. Ahmed, S.M. Ali, N.K. Bose and Deshpande may be mentioned particularly. Although their wide-ranging research interests cover the various facets of geography, they were mostly characterized by the descriptive ideographic style, having bearing towards the Gazedier trap, heterogeneity and unevenness. The role of four geographical Indian societies, especially the Indian Geographical Society at Madras, the Indian Geographical Society of India based in Calcutta, the Bombay Geographical Association and the National Geographical Society of India, which was based in Varanasi, founded during this period, is very important and eminent in disseminating geographical knowledge and promoting geographical research, especially during that period. Apart from this, there was some of the other other departments which came up, other societies which came up, which laid the foundation of what geography is today in India. Now we come to the second stage, which is called the informative stage, which occurred in 1950s, that is immediately after we gained independence. The second stage, of course, an advanced form of the preceding one, was a march towards using geography in national development. However, it followed again the prototypal framework of promoting storing information mostly on the path shown under the torchlight of the British, especially Stamp and Spate. The growth and development of the Indian geography during this stage started with a promising note, particularly with the initiation of the planning area, where the role of geographers was increasingly recognized by the national government and the planning commission for carrying out regional surveys, preparing resource inventories and mapping. Several journals and serials were started to serve the purpose. The most influential textbook of O.H.K. Spade, India and Pakistan, was published in 1952. The sub-branching of geography in both stream physical and human took shape in the form of several publications. R.L. Singh's Banaras and Urban Geography opened a new door to study city in India, which later served as a base model for further studies, while the initiative and guidance of S.P. Chatterjee, the opening up of the establishment of NETMO and other were some events which founded the base of geography in India. On the eve of India's independence, there were only 4 departments in the universities of Aligarh, Calcutta, Allahabad and Banaras which offered postgraduate studies in geography. By 1954, other universities, Agra, Punjab, Madras and Patna, began to offer postgraduate programs. The next 30 years witnessed major expansion of geographic studies in India. Geographers who made major contributions include S.P. Chatterjee, Chibhar, M. Shafi, S.L. Kaist, along with Kurian, Dubey, Ali and Rizvi. They, the best part was that these people brought professionalism in geography and gave geography a separate identity, an identity of a separate and independent discipline in India. Their major contributions were in bringing geographic ideas and concepts which were acquired in Europe but were applied in India. The major preoccupations of the Indian geographers during this period were on human geography, physical geography, it was in geomorphology, hydrology, climatology, biogeography, economic geography with reference to land use and agricultural geography, transport, trade and industrial geography. In human geography, it was concentrated on urban and population geography. At the same time, regional planning and cartography were also being understood to explain the social milieu and for harnessing the resources for national planning and development. The setback to studies in historical geography is noteworthy, whereas a little more awareness about geographical thought was done. Now, most of the most important here are the contributions of O.H.K. Spade, Chatterjee and R.L. Singh. Obviously, it is a hard reality that the geographical profession in India over the past half century has failed to keep pace with the progress in theory and practice in geography internationally. Means, in spite of the efforts being made by these geographers, we were not able to keep pace with the developments which was occurring, especially in America and in European countries with respect to geography. Now we come to the third stage, which is called the confirmative stage, that that is the 1960s. In the history of Indian geography, 1960s has been termed as the confirmative stage. The epoch-making event of this decade was the 21st International Geographical Congress, which was held in New Delhi in 1968 under the presidency of Professor S.P. Chatterjee. It inspired the Indian geographic community, which actively and vigorously engaged itself in research activity to conform to the international standards. As a result, large number of research contributions rose. Also during this, the number of universities imparting postgraduate teaching and research in geography rose to 36 as compared to 24 in 1959. A few more geographical societies and associations came into being, and new journals of geography like Transactions of the Indian Geographers, Deccan Geographer, Indian Journal of Geography, etc. were started. The government also set up a national committee for geography. During the 1960s, the major preoccupations was economic geography, geography of trade and transport, human geography, rural geography, physical geography, regionalization, regional planning, cartography, geographical thought and methodology, along with historical geography. Along with this, applied geography also made a debut. Applied geography was initiated by R.L. Singh when he came up with an edited book and is regarded as a landmark. Another study which is important here is Ashok Mitra study on the levels of development in India. The phase 1960 to 70 therefore marks the turning stage towards the fashionable acceptance of quantitative and regional approach, which emphasizes that information is the knowledge and its spatial pattern can prove the answer for any sort of explanation. Therefore, regional geography received special attention, and as a result, large number of departments were established, which were basically dealing with regional development. An example can be cited of the establishment of Center for the Study of Regional Development in Jawaharlal Nehru University, which was done in the reformative stage. But as regional development became very important, such departments came up. Now we come to the last stage, which is called the reformative stage. That is the stage of maturity. Now this stage has its initiation since 1970s. It appears to be exposed to the winds of methodological changes. Now that means this particular stage is very important in a sense that people came to know what is being done in the at the global scale. So they tried to use that even in India. Unfortunately, the Indian geography, having no basic philosophy of its own, has accepted even the naive ideas and passing fads without any critical examination under the halo of foreign superiority. However, there is a redeeming future that it is now feeling its ground and seeking its identity by shaking off initial psychological and emotional constraints. During the last 5 decades, several national and international events, seminars, winter workshops have been done, and to just bring a new geography within Indian geography. And in this, the phase of 1980-90 as seen as a stage of speculation, because a confidence emerged among Indian geographers, because now they were selecting proper approaches, they were using proper methodologies and terminologies, although these were based in British and American sources. It is noted that a brief and largely ineffective infatuation with techniques of Marxist methodology also occurred during this period, JNU being a prominent example. By 1992, there were over 60 institutions of higher education which offered courses in geography. For the most part, the leading departments of geography in India today are those of long standing. Among them are the departments of the University of Madras, Calcutta, Banaras Hindu University, Aligarh Muslim University, University of Delhi, JNU, Punjab University at Chandigarh, University of Bombay, University of Pune, to name some. Among the contemporary Indian geographers, A.V. Mukherjee, Munis Raza, Ramachandran provided the link between the early pioneering phases of concerned mainly with traditional studies and the new context of regional, economic and social geography, thus associating, it associated the discipline into one. It brought both the traditional values and the modern context into one. The reformative stage began by a challenge for the first time in the history of Indian geography. That means what was happening was challenged in 1991 when the Indians started identifying its own route. The phase 2000 onward is called the prospective stage in searching the routes and may be accepted as a technological mirage. Of course, this phase is in infancy. Now, in this post-independence period, geography has expanded rather fast in the university education system. This is because the efforts of and under the leadership of geographers like George Kurian, Deshpande, V.L.S. Prakasa Rao, S.P. Chatterjee, R.L. Singh, Muhammad Shafi, Muzaffar Ali, R.P. Mishra. Now, what these people did, they made geography academically active between the decades 1950s and 1990s. As a result, geography got promoted as a popular discipline in the universities, which I have already mentioned. Even the subject got boosted up because there were number of institutions were set up like NETMO, that is National Atlas and Thematic Mapping Organization, CSRD, which was developed by Professor Muniz Raza, and Institute of Development Studies at University of Mysore by S.P. Mishra. Eventually, a number of subfields have proliferated in the discipline by now, and major preoccupations of the Indian geographers are economic geography, human geography, physical geography, environmental geography, regional geography and planning, development, cartography, thematic geography, geographical thought, historical geography. The studies particularly in environmental geography, population geography, population and environment have remarkably been accepted. So, what we see is that over the period of time, Indian geography has witnessed paradigm changes, and that is what I am going to talk about in the next section, which says paradigm changes within Indian geography. However, considering the works carried out during the 20th century, it is clearly revealed how the focus of Indian geography shifted from much criticized Gazetier applied to analytical in the post independence period. Now, there were the new methods were applied, new concepts were being used, and the growing disparity was taken into consideration, and the education now became more related to resources, and therefore distribution in relation to man, in relation to development, became one of the focus. So, but still it is a big challenge, and it has acquired a greater attention within Indian geography, that we have to make our philosophical roots stronger. Clearly, Indian geography today is at important turning point. The foundation laid down after the independence are by the geographers who are now being retired is being challenged by new methodologies, now new techniques such as quantitative analysis, remote sensing, GIS. But at the same time, the Indian geographers are beginning to look beyond their own regional boundaries, so that they can be at par with the international status. So, the need of the hour is to develop a methodological system of Indian geography which has its distinctive traits as an intellectual and scientific discipline, which can provide a meaningful synthesis of our cultural heritage and psycho-technological progresses, our habitats, our habits, as well as our opportunities and challenges that can be more substantive, productive and satisfying. So, modern Indian geography, if it has to reach the status of science, must start studying its own problems of life and living. Unless we identify the geographical perspectives of these problems and seek an explanation, we cannot have a a scientific Indian geography. Thank you.